Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for the most important hour of the day. We'd like to give a special hello out to a couple new listeners, Mitch in Nashville, Tennessee, and Ken in Kansas City. Taking a look at the S&Ps this morning, Dennis, we get the old midnight bounce. Globex low currently stands at 1227 and a quarter. That's 2 points below the close, which was 1229 and a quarter. If that holds as the low of the day, we have an upside target near Friday and Monday's high at 1255. Globex high trading 2 points away from that, 1238.75. If that holds as the high of the day, we have a downside target of 1211. Dennis, I think as long as we stay above this mid-range here, this 1233 area, we're poised to go on the inside, on the upside. Just looking at what we have, as far as numbers going between, the close and yesterday's high, kind of like the way we came down yesterday, Dennis. There's really not a whole hell of a lot in there.
Yeah, I think eventually we could break down here. That was a big down day yesterday. I was expecting it to maybe, and then we kept rallying a little bit Friday, overnight, or over the weekend, obviously. We sold off then, and to yesterday with a nice sell-off. We did bounce a little bit, so, if you're looking at it as a shorting opportunity, looks like you're going to get your chances. We're up 7 here this morning. I'd say that 1250 area is pretty big, Joel.
Okay, moving on to our Big Ten. Another tight range in Apple here, Dennis. The high didn't even miss Friday's high by 19 cents, making a high at 390. Came down, took out Friday's low only by a point and a half. Kind of settled right smack dab in the middle. Now we are currently trading only at less than a point away from yesterday's high. I think this 394 area is going to be huge. I think it's going to be huge for Apple. I think it's going to be huge for the market to get above and hold that level. Coming back on the downside, you got to use this 391.84 as support.
Man, this stock's been in a tight range the last few days. It's gearing up to do something, Joel. I kept saying I think it could test that 400, but I don't know. You've just got to play. If it breaks down through 388, it looks like it's a sell. And obviously, if it starts to get about 395, 396, it's probably test that 400. But then you got major resistance up at 400, 405. So a little scary to own it. I could see an argument to sell it short here. But again, you just gotta, it's Google. Google's been very strong here, and it always seems to be the leader on Apple here the last month or so. So I think that's what holds Apple up as well. So keep an eye on Google if you're trading Apple.
Okay, ExxonMobil made a new weekly low, getting as low as 79.21, but bouncing, closing above that weekly low, which is 79.55, closing at 80.05. Currently trading 40 cents above that level, so we use that 80.05 as support. Coming back on the upside, we are looking at 81.09, which was Monday's high, which is will be good resistance. Backed up closely by Friday's close and Friday's high. Just getting a wall there at 82, huh, Dennis?
Well, 82 is huge. There was that size seller up there that we had talked about. So in the high 81s, you got high-frequency sellers all over the place. But it seems like we're getting a little bit of selling pressure earlier than that, even at 81, like you say, 81.09. So it seems like this thing just nibbles into the 81s and it finds sellers. So, and we've had a heck of a bounce from, last month down around 73.5, 73.80. So, up to 82. So I'm saying, I think the stock is running out of steam up here, it looks like, and it was a little bit of a breakdown day yesterday. So bounce is probably to be sold in this one.
Okay, moving on to our next component, Itsy Bitsy Machinery. Did make a new 52-week high, Dennis. That 195 level, just monster resistance. Friday's high was there, backed up earlier in the week by the all-time high, 194.90. Our first stopping point for resistance is going to be 193.90, though. That was Monday's high. Had a hard time getting into 194 handle. Broke down, made a low, 191.22. You had another low at 191.07. So that 191 level is critical on the downside, and 194 is critical on the upside.
Yeah, you've got it right on, spot on with the 195 low. We topped out there a couple of days at 194.87 and 194.90, which would be the all-time high. Again, IBM's got that huge seller at 195, so the high-frequency guys lean on him in the high 194s. You got other traders lean on the high-frequency guys. 194.80 all the way up to 195 is major, major resistance on this one.
Okay, Dennis, how long can Microsoft stay between, let's call it 25.29 and 25.87, which was the weekly high? Opened lower yesterday, went lower. Was able to take out the lows from last week, made a new low at 25.29. Then you get a strong bounce with the SPUs, and currently trading above yesterday's high. Channelingstocks.com, this is a favorite for you. You know, sell above 25.80 and buy it below 25.40.
Yeah, like you were saying yesterday, it reminds us of that 27.30, 27.40 level where somebody just kept coming in and selling that level, seeing the same thing start to materialize in this 25.70 to 25.90 area. Every time it gets up there, it's met with stiff resistance. I don't expect it to get through there again today. If for whatever reason, this is just a nice setup, because if it started trading 26 above 26, you probably get out. So if you're shorting in the 25.80s, you got 20 cents of risk there, you know, and you're looking, if you're a longer term trader, at possibly eventually breaking down, testing that 25 area. So I could see a potential of an 80-cent gain if you're shorting at 25.80 for 20 cents risk. That's a nice risk return on Microsoft. So that's the way I'll be playing it, and that's the way I would suggest our listeners try to play it as well.
Yeah, if you're willing to hold it for a month or so. Okay.
It is pretty slow, but yesterday got down to 25.29, so you can see when the market wants to start breaking, this stock does break. So it is relatively weak overall. So I still think this is going to break down to the 25 area here eventually, but if it gets above 26, I'm wrong, and I would cover for my loss.
Okay, Chevron Corporation was unable to touch Friday's close, stopped just shy of that at 104.23. So good resistance, 104.23 to close 104.25. That's backed up right by Friday's high, 104.50, and Thursday's high, 104.80. So running into a wall here, still a buck away from there. So that's where the potential for Chevron to go on the upside. Coming back on the downside, Dennis, you have the close at 103.07. I call that minor support as we stand right now. See how it trades around the 103 level. Below that, though, you got to look for 101.5, which was Monday's low.
Yeah, I think balance is to be sold in this one as well. You're right. We're starting to get a wall of resistance in this 104 area. So if it gets up there again, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't give some resistance again. So I think that's the way you play it. You know, it starts breaking up above 105, 106, then you think about covering. But definitely in the slow 104s, there's been some sellers. J&J.
You couldn't touch Friday's high with the lower SPU open high at 64.20. I mean, there's numbers in this thing all the way up from 64.20 to 64.95. So there'll be no free lunch on the upside here, especially the fact since we're just trading up a penny from the close, 63.52. Monday's low, 63.35. Looks like it may be tested here in the session if we get a little bit of sell-off. Really wouldn't want to be in this stock below 63.35. I'm looking at a minor stopping point at 62.85, the 6-day low. But the major support in J&J comes in at 62.46, which is the 10-day low.
Yeah, and the 64s, this thing's just been met with sellers all over the place, too. It's a complete wall at 65. You get up to that 64.80, 64.90s, we can go back a couple months here, really, and there's just been a wall of sellers there. So, you know, for whatever reason we would get up to that area, I'd definitely be a seller up there. But I don't know, it seems like it just gets into the 64s now and it's met with sellers, so I don't see it getting up into the upper. You may have to be a little bit earlier and selling in the lower 64s.
Okay, moving on to Procter & Gamble. Couldn't quite get to Friday's close. Another familiar theme here. Monday's high at 64.92, about 40 cents away from there. So that could be some resistance on a rally. Coming back on the downside, the close was 64.31 with the low right in that area. So as long as this thing stays around 64, have a chance to go up again and test that 65 level. We're right in between there, so it could be an SOH play, Procter Gamble here off the open.
Yeah, the 65 area is enormous. There's 100,000 shares there again. Remember before last week there was somebody dumping 500,000 there. It took him out, trade above it for an afternoon, and then the guy seemed to come back the next morning. It couldn't trade above that 65 again, so this guy is just unloading a lot of stock at 65. The high-frequency traders are usually all over that, so expect them to be in the 64.90s, even in the 64.80s. So you're going to have resistance all the way from 64.80 up to 65.
Okay, moving on to our next component, AT&T, man. This thing just cannot find itself out of a paper bag here. Monday and Friday's highs at 29.08 to 29.10. Monday's low, 28.92. Couldn't quite get to the weekly lows at 28.80. Channelingstocks.com here selling this thing at before the 29.010 and buying it just above the 28.80 level. Dennis, this thing has just been really quiet over the last few trading sessions.
Very, very, very tight range. It always is pretty tight, AT&T, but this is even tight for it. 29.20 area is major resistance to. Anytime the stock seems to get trading 29.19 right now in the pre-market, I'd probably be shocked if it opened over that unless the SPUs can really take off. So 29.20, call that initial resistance. 29.5 is a complete wall on this. That's 30 cents higher. I don't see it getting up there today, but if for whatever reason it could start to get up to the test that area, expect major resistance up there as well.
Okay, GE really doesn't like this $17 level, Dennis. 16.98 was the Friday and weekly high. Monday's high stopped short of that at 16.84. You would have had to been quick to get it at that level, hit that early in the session, and then sold off. Came down into that 16.30 area. Thursday's low, the weekly low at 16.18. Monday's low at 16.32. I guess we'll just call it 16.30 as long as GE is staying above 16.30 here. We would poised to go back up and test that $17 level.
Yeah, I had a trade on this one. I had the home short there at 17, just in front of the 17 area at 16.97, I think is where I sold it. Covered it in 1660s. Obviously, I'm a scalper at heart, and I always cover a little bit too soon. Wish I would have held it for a little bit longer, or put it back on in the 1685 when it nibbled positive there for a couple cents there yesterday, but I didn't. So, but again, if it gets up in those 1690s, I'd probably be a seller up there.
Okay, our 10th component, final component, Coca-Cola. Similar situation. Monday's high just shy of Friday's close. 67.57 was Friday's close. We only got to 67.50. Broke down, got to 66.56. Couldn't quite trust that double bottom. Well, actually, you got 3 of 5 lows here in the 66.14 to 66.32 area. Let's keep an eye on that. Channelingstocks.com here, 66.30 to 67.5 in the Coca-Cola.
Yeah, and in the upper 67s, again, resistance all over the place. 68's a wall. There's been a seller there for quite some time, so expect high-frequency resistance in the 67.80s and 60.
Okay, Dennis, what do we got? A little something coming out here. SPUs are just still bouncing around here. November retail sales came out. Not a huge number. Little bit of a sell-off. I still think we just need to hold above this 1233 level here to take a shot at the Globex high. We are going to take a quick break, get a few words in from our sponsors, and we'll be back with many of our exciting market movers.